Hey, HITLab ladies, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having us.
I am very honored to have both of you on today. I actually think this is our first three-person episode.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. So
thank you for the high honor.
Let's see if this works. I think it'll work. Well, this will be really fun. But so we have Abby and Savira here from HITLab. You ladies are leading the Women's Health Initiative over there, and FemTech Focus actually partnered with you on your last pitch competition, right?
Yes, part of our virtual boot camp and helping us, mentor the challenge finalists, and so we were so thankful for that partnership.
So cool.
Yeah,
that was great. That was probably honestly the first real partnership FemTech Focus got into, where I told the team, my interns, oh my God, we're partnered with someone. So it's really cool. I was like, we are something. We are something that
we have a partner.
That we can partner.
Right. No. Oh my God. Your background specifically in the work that FemTech Focus is doing is so aligned with what we hope to provide for our challenge finalists, especially, but for all the startups that we work with. So I would call it a perfect partnership.
Perfect. Sorry, my dog is here. He's he's a pit bull with a very strong tail. So he's knocking essentially in the wall.
Bobby and I both have ginormous dogs that are bigger than us, so we struggle with this on every.
I'm holding his tail right now, so it doesn't make it. Sorry, listeners. Well, let's get into your backgrounds. A lot of our listeners, you don't grow up saying, I'm going to be in FemTech. Maybe nowadays young people will, but we didn't, right? We didn't even know what that word was. And so can you each take a turn telling us about your background? What did you study? Where are you from? And how did you end up here?
Sure, I can go first. So my background is primarily in maternal and child health and early childhood health research and programming. So I've worked in research labs for New York City, for nonprofits, really just understanding health inequities in the US through the lens of moms and babies effectively and families. And I never ever planned to go into tech. But since joining HITLab, it's been so fun for me because a lot of the kind of bureaucratic processes that we see in traditional kind of research and programming or into public health interventions, we see a lot of those kind of barriers negated in tech, and everything moves so quickly and there's so much innovation. So I got my master's in public health a few years ago, and that really helped me to understand why our healthcare system and health inequities look the way that they do. And so I love being part of, FemTech specifically because it's looking at how we, take down those obstacles or kind of navigate them to help women better understand their own health, their own bodies, and get better quality care too.
Yeah. I love it. And Savira, where are you from? What have you studied, and how'd you end up here?
Yeah, so my background is in the clinical trial space, specifically in quality and patient safety, as well as health promotions. And part of that is, bringing in the real world evidence, product development, things around that. And that's really where my passion grew, specifically in the technology space, but then, pivoting into FemTech, being a female, women's health is a passion of mine, and seeing that there are so many gaps within the data and real world evidence and the scientific knowledge, it's important that we do advocate for it and have a voice in that space. So my educational background is in health policy and economics. I got my master's from Cornell University, and that's really where I looked into some of the gaps in healthcare and what we as a nation are doing to really address them. Yeah.
I love it. You both came from this general public health background, right?
Yeah.
And the thing I always end the show with, and improving women's health and wellness improves everyone's health and wellness, right? Because women don't just birth women. Women don't just live with women, right? There's if you improve a woman's health and her mental health, her physical health, her spiritual health, emotional health, you're improving that kid's health. You're improving, you know,
Yeah.
her job and therefore the
Yeah.
economy. And like, so I love that you're both from this like general public health and then you zoned in on the women, because it's kind of the same, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we both feel really strongly that women's health is human health, and it's important to take this like
Yeah.
super holistic perspective. And then especially when I was studying public health from like an academic perspective, you can say anything is public health, right? So you can say housing, you know, the food that kids eat in school cafeterias, any aspect of life can be related to public health. And once the kind of deeper you go, the more passionate you get about it, because you just learn more, and that can all be applied to women's health. So I think that's where, you know, our passion kind of stems from, and how important we feel that this field is.
Oh, completely. And I mean, echoing what Abby said, I think many times when people hear women's health, they just pinpoint and focus on reproductive health or pregnancy and motherhood. But women's health is well beyond that. You know, it's cardiovascular disease, it's diabetes, it's you know, pelvic disease, it's everything around, you know, the entire body, including mental health. And these are all things that just get passed over when thinking and looking into women's health. And that's something that we try to focus on as part of the initiative, is, you know, looking just beyond that reproductive and pregnancy, but really encompassing the entire woman.
Yeah. To, you know, for many, many millennia, women have been seen as mostly a uterus for pumping out babies. You know, one of the things when I first got into FemTech was I was looking at like any women's hospital, and I was like, what departments do they have there? And I was like, oh my God, women's hospitals are mostly birthing centers. Like, I don't like, they should just call it birthing center, like a baby hospital, you know, like newborn hospital. Because if it's a really woman's hospital, shouldn't they have like an Alzheimer's research lab and bone health and all this other stuff? Anyways, obviously all of my listeners know I have a lot of opinions, but
good ones.
Backed by data, by the way, backed by data. So tell us about HITLab. So you both work at HITLab, and you both work in the Women's Health Tech Initiative. So tell us, what is HITLab and what's that initiative about?
Yeah, so HITLab is it has three pillars to the organization. It's a research, advisory, and education organization, all focused within the digital health space. Because we've stemmed from Columbia University some 20 years ago, we believe in the rigor of academic research and the data collected. So we're scientific backed, we're evidence backed, we're data driven organization, where we're really trying to help the startups and the people within the community of digital health really gather the scientific knowledge needed to advance their technology. So some of the work that we do within the research area is providing you know, user experience or technical feasibility support, or in the advisory area, helping with startups understand what is their business model or financial modeling. And then in the education, because educating the general public about technologies is so important, we have webinars, and we're also partnered with Columbia Business School for a variety of digital health educational programming to really just advance the knowledge for everyone.
Awesome. And was there like this common thread of a lot of people you were advising or working with were in FemTech, and that's why you started this initiative for the women's health tech, or something else happened?
Yeah, no, something else happened actually. We were seeing that there was a lack of FemTechs that were coming to us. And given that, you know, pretty much 100% of our research team is female driven, why are we not focusing on women's health? I mean, come on, this is a passion of ours. We all love this. And that's really where it stemmed from. Our first challenge was in May 2019. And it was started by, you know, primarily our marketing team. And then it really grew it from there with the support of Abby and I, and made it into this larger programming, a larger initiative that can really have a movement to it, and really support the startups through a variety of ways. And Abby can definitely talk more into like what exactly is Women's Health Tech Initiative.
Yeah, so whereas I like to say that HITLab looks at every intersection of health and technology, I like to say that our initiative looks at every intersection of just technology and women's health specifically. So I don't even like to say the term digital health, just because some of the most amazing innovation I've seen has been hardware without any software components. So we look at hardware, we look at software, a combination of both, everything really that's just using innovation to look at problems of women's health that either haven't been looked at in a long time, or only have a few solutions and need more, or nobody's ever really thought of before besides, academic labs. That's probably the most fun thing about working in FemTech, and specifically, through this lens of our Women's Health Tech Challenge and the initiative, is just getting to talk to all of the amazing startup founders and really people who are thinking beyond what we have now and what we could do better, because obviously there's a ton we can do better and a ton that people are looking at. So the Women's Health Tech Initiative really just aims to lend the research and strategy expertise and the rigorous methodology that we use to support the innovators that are doing this work.
Mm-hmm.
And so my understanding is that you have these 2 pitch competitions every year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you told like your organization that dog's tail again.
Very happy to hear what we have to say.
I want everyone to see he's a big guy. He's just a big guy over here banging his tail against the wall. I'm sorry. Come here.
I think honestly, since quarantine, our dogs have gotten so spoiled.
Yeah.
Like, they're just constant attention because they know they can get it.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, my dog knows the Zoom calls sound.
He knows. Yes.
He'll
That's
just come
why he's
sit right
here.
next to me.
God. So we may actually have to edit this episode. We'll see. So you started this pitch competition. May 2019 was the first one, right?
Yes.
And how did you anticipate a lot of applicants? Were you worried there weren't going to be a lot of applicants for the pitch competition? And then what ended up happening? How many applicants did you get?
Yeah, so in 2019, when we first started, it was first year of doing this. We really didn't have that many applicants, but towards the end of the year, we started to get, quite a lot. By the end of the year, we had about 250 applicants apply for the challenge, and these were all unique, different startups. Yeah, and the last challenge we had in May, we, again, a similar number where, we just had so many amazing startups apply that were, not just like series A, B's, and C's, but then early stage startups and, really startups that were just starting to really grow their technology, develop their MVP and product. So we saw the whole variety from early stage all the way to series C at this last challenge.
Wow, incredible. Yeah, so we're developing programs for ourselves at FemTech Focus, and we're partnered with the Guild, and we're launching a ideation lab for FemTech companies. And Anne Coquette from the Guild, when we first started talking about it, she was like, "Do you really think we'll have that many applicants?" And I was like, "Yes. We're gonna have so many." But there definitely was something in the back of my mind was like, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
You will.
This is a good data point.
There are so many people who have, at this point, a lot of people come to us at HITLab with just an idea. And so part of what we do is really developing that out. Okay, you're in the ideation stage, and we help them figure out, okay, what is your idea? How does it different? How is it, if you're looking for revenue, how is that model going to sustain? What issues are you trying to solve? How can we kind of pull together resources? And so there are so many good ideas out there, and a lot of it just requires, mentorship and resources and experts in building that out. And you know how to do that. So certainly that sounds like a really, really good idea, and definitely needed in the FemTech field.
Yes. Do you see commonalities between the startups that approach you that are from FemTech?
Yes, I see a lot. I think one of my favorite commonalities is that we see so many female founders, and women looking at, issues about their own bodies, or, kind of the larger population. And I think that's so exciting because for so long, men have been the ones to research and understand women's bodies and tell us how we feel pain, or, you know, what kinds of women, you know, that Black women feel less pain than white women. And so the conversation needs to be, and I think everybody's having this conversation, women need to be at the forefront and men need to listen, right? And to understand. But it's just so exciting to see so many, like, honestly, just smart, badass, like, women who are community oriented in terms of like really being supportive. Everyone that I've spoken to in this field in FemTech kind of overall is just looking at solutions that have been neglected for a long time, but thinking about them in really innovative ways. So just the amount of just, I'm always just like inspired and blown away when I talk to every founder, just because A, they're just great to talk to, but B, they're doing such amazing work. And so that for me is just really kind of fun to be listening in on.
Yeah, I love that this is an industry that we don't have to struggle to find more female founders, right? So I'm very bullish on more men should actually be in this industry, because men should care about it too, right? But you know, working in venture, working in accelerators, it was always this underlying like, and how many women are we recruiting? How many women are we investing in? Where are the women? Making sure it's diverse. Yeah. This is like, I don't have to struggle with that. It's literally not a thought that I have to consider, because, you know, we have seen a lot of women, but then also a lot of women of color, you know, women that identify differently. And so it's been really, really cool to not have this like daily challenge my mind about like, oh, are we diverse enough? It's like, no, this is great.
Totally. And then we can even, I mean, we don't have to think about, you know, our diversity ratio in terms of gender or sex, and that allows us to go deeper and make sure that voices within, you know, women or, you know, people who identify as women are heard. And so we're kind of like pulling deeper into the pool. So we certainly have, you know, challenges in terms of whose voices are coming to the panel or who's showcased, but we kind of inherently are able to dive deeper than other fields would.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, even thinking through, you know, planning the November challenge that's coming up, you walked away. So thinking through like the November challenge, you know, part of what we wanted to focus on was not just female founders, but then marginalized communities and how the technology is focusing on that area. And that's really something that's relevant to today's socio-justice area. You know, and that's why we wanted to highlight that, not just women's health.
That's right. Because women's health needs a lot of help, but Black women's health needs a lot of help. Brown women's health needs a lot of help, right? Like poor women's health needs a lot of help. Like
and there's like a lot of health inequalities.
Needs a lot of help. Like there's a lot of different sections within us.
Right.
Exactly.
And there's so many health inequalities, not just nationwide, but globally. And that's something that we're trying to really focus on. How can technologies help women within these communities and really advance the science there?
Do you have any advice for, you know, founders that are in FemTech, haven't heard of HITLab or your pitch competition? Do you have any advice for them as they look to enroll in your future programs?
Yeah, follow us on all social media. At this point, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. So follow HITLab everywhere. And you know, as we're advancing and getting closer to the challenge dates, we'll be posting more about women's health tech and the applications and things of that nature and how other companies can get involved. But then, you know, just even outside of women's health, startups can just call us. We're more than happy to speak to any startup and help them in any way possible. And we're really not trying to break a startup's bank. We understand a lot of them are bootstrapped, and we get it. And we're trying to help them advance their science, not break their bank. So we're willing to work with you to really help you.
Do you notice like similar challenges that FemTech companies have? And do you think there's certain advice that FemTech companies need that's unique?
I think that building out the evidence base sometimes is hard for companies because a lot of these problems just haven't really been looked at, or the kind of the data is kind of buried deep down. Maybe one researcher looked at it one time or something like that. So, and then it didn't really go anywhere from there. So even if the evidence is there, we need more. So a lot of times, the evidence is required for investors to understand the problem and understand why this innovation is then required to solve it. So a lot of startups come to us, without a ton of funding, or they're still bootstrapping, and obviously we want to help them and we do everything we can. It's hard though when there isn't a budget for us to be able to help them with the evidence base. So I think there's kind of that chicken and egg situation, because we want to do the research and we want to help them understand the problem better, so that they can go get more funding, things like that. So that's one of our, I think, challenges that we see a lot. But I would also say that because this field just seems to be blossoming and burgeoning, there are more and more resources available. I feel like every day I'm learning about new things. So hopefully in the next few years, that obstacle, while investment is always going to be an obstacle, getting to that part will be easier for FemTech companies.
We have a lot of university students that listen to this show, and graduate students who are like, I love FemTech, but what am I going to do in it? And, not everyone is the founder personality. And so I think it's really interesting, this public health background that y'all have and how that's kind of allowed you to work in the FemTech space. Can you speak more about that? Do you think there could be like a FemTech public health master's degree or something?
Yes. Oh my God. I think about this a lot, because I do have also like a lot of kind of early career people coming to me. How do I get involved? I have an MPH. I saw you have an MPH. And honestly, it wasn't a path that I predicted, or kind of, as we talked about in the beginning, I kind of didn't see myself down this, but now that I'm here, it's so exciting, and it's such a cool way to be able to incorporate the public health background. I think, at least in my experience, public health programs, educational programs don't really talk about tech a ton. There isn't a lot of talk about innovation through technology, more so like, really smart programming or smart interventions based on science, but technology is kind of lacking, at least when we talk about it or learn about it. So I think there could be an entire track devoted to, public health innovation. Certainly FemTech. I mean, I think I tell everyone who asks, now is the perfect time to be getting into FemTech.
It is.
I think in terms of startups, one of the harder things about people with research and programming backgrounds is that startups need marketing, design, engineers, sales. They don't necessarily need research right away. So I think being able to hone in really on like UX is the best way for people who understand, the populations, who understand the user. I think that's kind of one of the best ways for people with MPHs to kind of navigate through FemTech. But certainly there's a route. And I think as the field grows, the opportunities for people with this innate understanding of healthcare and health systems will grow as well.
Yeah, I mean, just echoing what Abby said, I think if they really want to get involved in the FemTech space, just reach out to FemTech. Early stagers need the support, they need the extra hands. And if you have that time to volunteer and really want to get into the weeds and get that experience, just volunteer your time, and they could use your support in a variety of ways. And, it's okay not having that marketing background, but you have social media background. Everyone in our age does,
Yeah.
And that alone is enough of a support to help a early stage startup, get up and going.
Totally.
And you'll learn so much hands-on. It's amazing, and you'll see the entire product life cycle through that way.
Totally. Yeah. We've been thinking about like, can we make a FemTech hackathon in a box? Right. So University of Houston had a 3-day FemTech hackathon challenge last year. And it was the first of its kind, and I was a mentor at it, and it was so much fun. It was so cool. And 4 of our interns now were all in that challenge, right? And so they got fired up because of this hackathon, and now they're like, we want careers in FemTech. And so, Dr. Julie and I were like, can we make like a hackathon in a box, you know, like, and license this out to universities to like ignite a lot more people. Cause I think once people learn about what FemTech is, they're like, this is amazing. Like, I want to do this, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, now in pandemic, I think I've learned that anything is possible to do virtually or package in ways that, so you could totally do that. And that's an amazing idea. I think although sometimes people struggle with the term FemTech, I like it because it really does kind of like package at least a lot, if not everything of what we talk about when we talk about FemTech. I think one of the struggles, especially in terms of getting started in FemTech, is that if you Google it, you know, a job search will come up. Did you mean FinTech?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I did not. So it's, you know, just like this awareness of what FemTech is. I was talking to Abby Cuffey, who's an editor at Women's Health magazine, and she's like, oh yeah, we've done a few articles on FemTech, but you know, we were talking about how Women's Health, you know, as a, you know, magazine or, you know, a channel that people come to for information about women's health they've done, you know, some work on women's health innovation, but they can do more. And so I think and they're planning to, I think as the word FemTech and the idea of what it is becomes more popular, it'll be easier to become involved, because then, you know, job descriptions will have FemTech on it, or companies will label themselves as FemTech companies. So you actually know what you're talking about when you talk about FemTech. I think I learned what FemTech was through talking to people, you know, and really being able to like hone my definition of what that was through just these types of conversations.
That's right. Yeah. A few months ago, I was on Indeed, and I was like, I wonder what FemTech jobs are out there. And I put FemTech, and it was like 0. And I was like, Indeed, I literally gave you a global search filter.
Yeah. And it's not true, but it's like they're, you know, like FinTech or EdTech or FemTech, like they exist, right? FemTech exists for people who know about it, and people are starting to know about it more. But I think the more that we talk about it, and you know, FemTech
SEO will go up. It'll go up.
Exactly. Or our iPhones will just be hearing us and
come on, Facebook. Come on.
Exactly.
Well, this has been super awesome. We have 2 last questions for you that our listeners love. The first one is, you know, we have a lot of aspiring founders that listen, and they want to know what areas in women's health and wellness still need innovating. So what do you think? What's an area that still could use some help?
Yeah, we talk about this a lot. I mean, I think the short answer is everything. Everywhere could still use help. Some areas that I've been particularly interested in, especially in having conversations with founders as the nature of the work that we do. One area is abortion. We see a lot of like innovation in fertility and pregnancy and having healthy, successful pregnancies. And obviously that's so important. We don't want that to change. We want that innovation to keep going at the lightning speed it is. But we don't have a lot out there for abortion, and that's also a basic, you know, healthcare right and human right.
Absolutely.
And so I've seen one company looking at this so far, but also given the inequity when it comes to abortion in our country, specifically, you know, low socioeconomic status women, or, you know, women living in rural areas, we need so much more access to abortion. It comes into play, like we were talking about before, you know, the maternal mortality rates of Black women in this country. All of that isn't, you know, is linked to access to these basic reproductive needs. So I think abortion is somewhere where we need help, and telehealth is like the perfect kind of portal to that. And I'm excited to see, you know, what this one company is doing, and also, you know, where the field can take this further. Another area that I think a lot about is pelvic pain, because, you know, there are some companies out there who are trying to understand it better. High Ivy Health is one of them. I just spoke to the founder of Outu recently. She's looking at chronic pain and then how that affects pelvic pain specifically. But we really just, science, academia don't really understand pelvic pain all that well. And it's you know, one of the kind of most common symptoms for PCOS, endometriosis, a lot of, you know, really important women's health issues that affect so many people. And if we understood pelvic pain better, perhaps we could understand those issues better as well. So those are 2 that I've been thinking about a lot. And you know, hopefully I'm excited to see where the field takes it, but right now we definitely need more innovation there.
Abby,
Yeah.
I love the abortion thing. If I could just talk on that for 1 second, because
Yeah.
I've been going to all these conferences for women's health and wellness, and I have yet to see an abortion panel. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of upset about it, honestly, because I think the statistic in the United States is 1 in 4 women have an abortion. And
I
so
was going to say, you know, someone who's had an abortion.
you know,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
we're having like all these panels about like the big market size, and I'm like, we're not talking about the elephant in the room, y'all. Okay, so we don't need to talk about whether you want one yourself or not, or when and how it's allowed to happen, but like, for God's sake, it should at least be safe. And
Right.
you know, I'm obviously get very passionate about this, and you know,
100%.
We agree.
I'm willing, totally here on record, like I've had an abortion, right? And it was a horrible experience, horrible experience. So when I hear people say like, well, I'm pro-choice, but I don't think people should, use it as a form of birth control. I'm like, I promise you, ain't nobody going to the abortion clinic every Friday night for their weekly abortion.
No
all right.
one.
Let me tell you, it's a horrible experience. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's just the problem. It's such a stigmatized topic, especially in our nation, that no one feels comfortable talking about it. And because we don't talk about it, no one is aware of all of the variety of reasons women go for an abortion.
Yeah.
And because of that, we're not seeing innovation. We're not seeing any advancement in science in that space. And because parts of our nation do need support in that abortion, having a telehealth programming or a technology that really connects women that need this sort of resource is extremely important. I think more than fertility, tech right now, this needs to be looked at.
Because we talk all the time about like birth control, like causing all these symptoms. So you have to change birth control. So I got pregnant because I was changing my birth control because I was having symptoms from one. And as I was transitioning, I got pregnant in the middle, and it was like, damn, I'm trying to do everything I can, And so it's like, if we're going to have a conversation about birth control and symptoms, like this is a symptom, right?
Yeah.
Like getting pregnant is a symptom.
100%. I'm so ready to move past the conversation of whether or not women should be allowed to have one or have access to one, and like let's just talk about how to get it to them, how to make it safe. Like I think this is also where the public health background comes into play. We know statistically, based on evidence and science, women are going to have abortions. They have been having them since the beginning of time. How can we make it safe? How can we have it under the care of a doctor? How do we give them
less shitty experience?
I felt
like I was a cattle. Like I was in line for my next thing. It was like horrible,
Yeah. And then the after effects of it as well, right? The mental health support needed for it. The overall lifestyle and well-being support needed for it. There's an entire patient journey that's overlooked that needs to be
because I didn't feel like I could go to, I was in college at the time. I didn't feel like I could go to class and be like, oh, I need, can I have a, break on this assignment? I just had an abortion, right? Like I couldn't talk about it, like I didn't even tell my younger sister at the time, thinking back. And it was just because it was even a secret within our own roof,
Yeah. I mean, I was just watching, I just watched that show, I watched it a while, called Little Fires Everywhere, with Reese Witherspoon and, Kerry Washington. And anyway, I don't want to ruin it for anyone who hasn't seen it, and I don't want to get too off topic.
Alert.
There's a whole piece on abortion at some point, and they actually I don't even think they say the word. They might say it one time, and it's that ingrained in society to not talk about it that a show that has a scene about it barely even speaks about what's going on, but you inherently know what's happening. And I think that's symbolic of larger, it's happening anyway. FemTech has the smarts, the resources. We just need to keep talking about it.
Do it.
And it's within sexual and reproductive health. I think that's one area that I don't hear about.
Thanks for the 5 minutes.
Anytime.
Oh man. Our last question is, what do you think the FemTech industry as a whole needs the most right now in order to be successful?
More innovators. I think there needs to be more women empowered to innovate and be entrepreneurs and take on, different femtech topics and target chronic disease, target mental health, target abortion health, be empowered to be an innovator and really explore what's out there.
I love it.
Yeah, I would say on top of that, just education, within larger, educating investors, but also educating ourselves, educating even people who are in FemTech. I mean, the first time I really learned about pelvic organ prolapse, which affects 50% of women, was at one of our Women's Health Tech Challenges when our winner was looking at ways to innovate the pessary.
Yeah.
And I had never heard about that in my life. And that affects half of women. So
and we're leaders in FemTech, right? Like my listeners know every episode I'm like, really? That's a thing in the world? And I'm a freaking leader in this industry, right?
Yeah, so, exactly. And so I feel so strongly that we need to this goes back to the conversation, but demystifying our own bodies, understanding them better, understanding what's going to happen to them as we age and how we can empower ourselves. So I think that starts with FemTech having the capacity to educate people about why these issues are even important. And oftentimes when we look at applications for our Women's Health Tech Challenge, part of that struggle is inherent because a lot of these conditions or problems that we're looking at, they seem specific and they seem like maybe they don't affect that many women if you have trouble framing it, but realistically we can totally make an argument that this is important and here's why and here's how many women it affects. But I think educating and framing these issues as something that truly represents why they're important is a struggle and something that I think we need to continue to work on.
That's right. Well, when is your next challenge and when should people apply for it?
Yep. So our next challenge is November 19th, Women's Entrepreneurship Day. We will be calling all innovators who work at any intersection of women's health and technology. We're hoping that our application will be out by the end of the summer. So definitely look on LinkedIn and our website. We're hoping to have that out in the next few weeks.
Awesome.
And definitely reach out to HITLab with any questions about our Women's Health Tech Initiative, the services that we can offer the FemTech field. And you'll be hearing hopefully more on that in the coming weeks.
Perfect. Thank you ladies so much for your time today. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, this was fun.
Bye.